Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. There will be more stories this off season. Also, if you want to become a club member, go to the Ampire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that, go from there. Been doing these weekly Zooms with the gold members. Not sure, but going to do one this week. We've done one pretty much every week from the start of training camp through now. So they will be getting a little bit, not every week, but we'll be doing a lot of them, and I'll be continue to bring on guests. Had Ben Standing on last time. Chance for everybody to get to ask questions, whatever they want, from two of the beat reporters, and last week. So hope you enjoyed that, and there will be more. And just stay tuned. I'll see about this week, and then we'll see. But I'll let you know as soon as I do. Anyways, today it's the start of the offseason, folks. Super Bowl is over. Let's get to it. So I'm going to do 5 things I think. One little reminder, though, for upcoming shows this week. I have Ben Baby, our ESPN Bengals reporter, going to be coming on to talk about the T. Higgins situation in Cincinnati and just what he foresees, just get some intel on T. Higgins, because we all know he's a guy that people are going to be talking about here. Whether or not it's realistic, we'll find out later. But I do want to bring him on. Then also I had him talking about like Joe Burrow, his improvement as a quarterback, things that you can apply to Jayden Daniels as to why, do you foresee a sophomore slump? I do not. And you can look at Joe Burrow and how he goes about things, and that's pretty much how Jayden Daniels does as well. So anyways, and then on Thursday, I have ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reed as we look ahead to the NFL draft. Really, really good intel from Jordan. Can't wait to share that one with you. So we got a lot of stuff going on this week, but I did want to start with the 5 things I think, and I'm taping this before the Super Bowl. And does it matter to you who won? As far as this podcast goes, sometimes you do those, what we learned from watching the Super Bowl. We already learned a lot about this team. We also know where they need to get past a team like the Eagles in the NFC. So anyway, but let's get to the 5 things. So first of all, I think this is a silly season, and you guys need to be a little bit careful or judicious with how you process the information that starts coming out. As you know, because Washington had a good year, they have a really good young quarterback, and they have some cap space, which I'm going to get to in a minute, to see how much do they really have or what does it really mean. They're going to be attached to a lot of name players. So it feels like anytime there's a big name that comes out, like, and watch Washington. We've seen that before. And there's going to be some merit to some of this, but I would just say learn to differentiate between a report and speculation. And speculation is, hey, could Washington be involved here? Yeah, of course. And we all might speculate. I will try to tell you when I do speculate, it is just speculation. It's not something It's just like, would this guy make sense here? That's part of what goes on this offseason. But as you know, the last few years, it's been a smorgasbord of just some, either faulty reporting, poor rumors, whatever, going back to the sale. Bill Belichick involved here. He was never a coaching candidate here. Ben Johnson situation, there's still misinformation that comes out about that whole thing. And so, just even this year, there's stuff came out that was just inaccurate all over the place. So just be careful with how you process it. I think that, but we also know that this team will be attached now because it is a destination place now. They're going to be, agents are going to use this place because they know people want to come here. They know, and it's not like in the Snyder days, it was all about money. Now it's like, hey, they would spend if they like you, but also it's a place that people want to go to come. And so I think people are going to take advantage of that. And there's going to be some merit to a lot of this stuff that comes out. And so it's the silly season. I mean, we already know, like, Myles Garrett wants to be traded. He looks favorably upon this place. Of course he would. I don't think he's going to say that about every place. If this were a year ago, he's not going to be talking about wanting to come to Washington. But now I think it's a legitimate place where you can say, like, would it make sense here for both parties? Well, of course it would. And then it depends on the cost. As other people say, I would love to have a certain Mercedes, but who wouldn't? But what's the cost? That's always the key. So anyways, that we know that. So there will be attached to him. Deebo Samuel, now he's been given permission to seek a trade. Cooper Kupp, permission to, can seek a trade. So the Rams are definitely going to trade him. So those are two other names we're going to hear a lot about and attached in some ways to Washington for sure. And I would just say, what you always have to say, what makes sense, and don't just get attached to the names because these guys aren't just going to go out and get a bunch of guys who are aging or damaged or whatever. I mean, last year was Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler worked out well for them, but it's going to be hard to build a sustainable program by just getting guys who are aging veterans who have dinged up a little bit, right? So you've got to be careful and not just hear the name, do the research on the name and why are they available? What might it look like here? So, anyways, that's number one. And I'm going to get into some of the other stuff with Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel in a minute too. But I think you need to attack both lines. And I think if you watch the Kansas City Chiefs, a really good team because they attacked their offensive line after losing a few years ago and they needed a better offensive line. They went out and got it. It's made a difference for Mahomes, both sides of the ball. Chris Jones, they have a really good offensive line. The Eagles have really terrific offense and defensive lines. And if this team, I think, wants to build something sustainable, you're going to have to start there. Doesn't mean just put all your resources there, but you need to keep building there, and especially on offense. And I think we've talked about this before, but Brandon Coleman to me gives you flexibility. And I asked Jordan Reed about him too, and also how it pertains to the draft class. And it may not be the way you want to build it. So, but Coleman gives you flexibility. He can play left tackle. He might be better elsewhere, but you don't have to move him if you can't find a better alternative. But you can improve other areas if you do find another left tackle. So that's a place where you're going to look. And can you strengthen the interior? You talk to people that I've talked to some people around the league, and that's the area they would still attack. And then right tackle. So I think there's going to be some questions there. So I think that's got to be a work in progress, but that's an area you absolutely have to attack. It's not just to protect Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels does a good job protecting himself by getting out of situations. But it's also about the run game and getting that going because that was way too inconsistent, not because of Jayden, but because of the running backs in the run game. When it was just the running backs with the offensive line, it was just way too inconsistent down the stretch. The offensive line got bullied too many times, and they've got to change that. So that's where they've got to start. And we'll see. But I think, for Myles Garrett too. The one thing I'll say, I would just be careful on that one too, because we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, the Browns keep saying, I had our Browns reporter on last week, and you Google listen to him, really good insight. We still don't know what's going to go on, what Cleveland plans to do. We know Myles Garrett is out there very publicly asking for a trade. Again, he's talked about here, but when I've kind of talked to a few people around the league, and they still don't know what it would take, but two, are they even going to trade him? Because as Daniel last week pointed out on the podcast, but others have pointed out to me, this is a group that needs to win. And you don't help yourself by trading away your best player. So I don't know that they're going to do that. And the other thing is, like, there are definitely some people who think, hey, that he'll end up with an extension and stay in Cleveland. I don't know about that either. It's very possible that the Browns say you got to keep him and let him play. And then at the trade deadline, reassess where you're at and maybe make a move then. It could be that. I don't know. That's all speculation. So I told you I would tell you that's not a report. It's a speculation. It's guesswork. It's trying to analyze a situation. But when you talk to people around the league, I don't think it doesn't feel, nobody has told me, oh yeah, they're definitely going to trade him. And they may end up doing that. But right now, I don't know that people really think that it's going to happen, at least not just a few people that I've talked to. So we'll see what happens there. Again, the Browns have to win. Otherwise, that group is screwed. So, and we don't know the cost. I mean, you can speculate a couple ones. I don't know because nothing's out there yet, and I haven't heard anything that lays down what the price might be. Then you have Deebo Samuel again and Cooper Kupp, both available. Would you trade for them? Well, if you do, consider for example, Cooper Kupp. He's missed a lot of games in recent years. He's only played in 31 of the last 54 games he's been available. So would you trade for that? And we went over the cap ramifications last week. If you did, The Rams would probably pick up his roster bonus if they traded, and it would have to be a low round pick. But it would be, you if the Rams picked up his roster bonus to 7.5 million, you're getting him for 12.5. That's another good player to add inside for Jayden Daniels. But he's got to stay healthy. And again, you don't want to just start collecting all the aging guys. You have a few already, but you do have to get younger in some of those years. Deebo Samuel is another one that would be interesting. Now, obviously, Adam Peters knows him very well. Um, I think the hard part is just looking at like for 1 year, you get him for 1 year, and you don't only have to give up like a fifth or sixth round pick. Not a bad bargain there. But and I will say, I think like Cliff Kingsbury is terrific at knowing how to use guys. Clearly, he would know how to use Deebo Samuel. And Kyle has a really good relationship, obviously, with Adam Peters, a really good relationship with Dan Quinn. So they would get. I mean, Peters was there. I mean, he knows Deebo Samuel. He knows exactly what he would bring to the locker room, to the field, whatever. And I think he's a guy that one thing that's benefited Jayden Daniels is that he doesn't have receivers or kind of harping in his ear to get him the ball. Terry McLaurin doesn't have to do that because if he doesn't get the ball, the whole world asks why they didn't get him the ball. I think Debo is a guy that maybe has a little bit more of that receiver in him where it's like, hey, I want the ball, which is okay. But you have, and I think Jayden can handle that. So I don't know that it's a problem there. But the other thing is, look at it. His best year was 2021, 1,770 yards from scrimmage. Since then, it's 864, 1,117, and 806. So which version are you going to get? Because that 1770 was a fantastic player. He's a very versatile player. And I don't know that it's automatic that you give him an extension, but I do think if you can get him for a low round pick for a year, I mean, the guy can still play. But again, I just gave you the numbers, and that's what he's doing in offense he's highly familiar with. But here with Jayden Daniels, I think you have a chance to maybe do a little bit more. We'll see. But that's one of the things there. But again, I would still look at attacking the lines. And I think that's number three. Like you definitely have to improve the offensive line. So I think the hard part is when you fill needs in free agency and you draft for, to build, right? You draft good players, you fill needs in free agency. That's the theory. But again, I told you when I have Jordan Reed coming on, you can find out all about how the offensive line is in this draft. But one thing to keep in mind, we all know there's a lot of cap space available to Washington, third most cap space in the NFL. But here, this is where you have to drill down a little bit and see, well, what does that mean? Because the first two ahead of them, New England and the Raiders, they have 55 and 54 players under contract, respectively. Washington has 43. Arizona, by example, has the fourth most cap space, but they have 60 players under contract for next year. So they have a lot of room. Only the Kansas City Chiefs have fewer players under contract for next year than Washington. So when you hear those numbers, you have to understand like they have to fill out the roster. So you can't just go crazy and get like this guy and this guy and this guy. Maybe you swing and get a couple really good players and keep building. And then, maybe you can do something with, if you get something, it's obviously how you structure it. And not, if you go out and sign a big name guy or a big time free agent, you don't have to pay up front right away. So you can push it, you can build it out accordingly. But it does make it difficult with certain moves and how many moves that you really can make because you've got to resign a few of your own guys for sure. But that's what I would say. But again, you've got to improve that offensive line. And it goes back to the run game as much as it is protecting Jayden Daniels because, there were plenty of times where offensive linemen would say like, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z and Jayden made me look good because he got out of it. So we know he can do that. But I don't think it's as easy as just go sign this guy, sign this guy, sign this guy, these big time free agents. I think as we get closer to free agency, we'll know a lot more about what their plans are. And then it depends on, do you release anybody to free up more space, whether it's a Wiley, whether it's John Allen, don't know yet. And if you do that, then it gives you more, but then you have to sign more guys because you just cut a couple guys. So you then have fewer guys on the roster. But that's the tricky part when you're looking at the cap is how many guys are on their roster versus how much compared to other teams. And it's definitely lower. And that's why you just have to keep that in mind when we get to free agency. All right, number four, I think Jayden Daniels really understands his role, and I think he does not really care about the spotlight. And I think we saw that all season, but again at the NFL honors last week before the Super Bowl. And there are a couple of things that stood out to me with Jayden Daniels there. And it's funny because this is just who he is, right? But he's somebody who I've always said he understands his role in Washington. He understands his role in the offense in this organization. He respects that role. He doesn't flaunt that role. In other words, he knows that he's important here, but he doesn't walk around acting like it, feeling like it, saying it. He just embraces it and understands it. And it's funny. I tell people that in that way, it reminds me a lot of Doug Williams. Doug Williams, when you talk to him, understands absolutely his role in history in the NFL and his role in the African American community, but he doesn't walk around beating his chest over it. He just understands it and respects it. And I think Jayden's the same way. And it's funny because he grew up, I don't know about idolizing Doug Williams, but certainly with a deep understanding of what he meant and what he meant to him. So that's why I think it meant something to him to be drafted here. So, but the reason I bring that up is, he might say, his role is to do this. His role is just to do whatever it takes to win, right? But he understands it may be to do some super heroic things, but doesn't walk around beating his chest over it. And then you watch him with the spotlight that comes with it. It's not that he's uncomfortable in it per se. It's just that he doesn't need it. And I remember there were a couple scenes, one from the NFL honors and also another one from a scene when they were walking during the playoffs. There was one time, I think maybe they were flying to Tampa, I think. I don't remember if it was Tampa, maybe it was Detroit. I don't remember which one. But there was a camera on the runway just videotaping the players as they walk into the airport. And there were a lot of fans there. And as Jayden walks out, of course, he gets a huge ovation, but he just kind of has his head down and just feels, I don't know about almost reticent or hesitant or maybe almost slightly embarrassed by it. And other players, like they're getting into it, they're going over, they're slapping five, whatever. But he just kind of head down, walked it. He acknowledges it. He understands it, but he doesn't necessarily need it. It's not why he's out there to get the fame. He understands that accompanies it. And you see him at these award ceremonies. And during interviews, he's engaging. He's a fun kid, fun young man, I should say. He's now 24. But he doesn't necessarily, I don't think you're going to see him out there just all over the place this offseason and taking advantage of his newfound fame like maybe some others would. And, it's hard because you're 24, you're getting a lot thrown at you. But I think the reason why he has a chance to be one of the greats is because I think he'll just get back in the lab and just get back to work. And, there are going to be things that'll be available to him that just you wouldn't be otherwise. But I think I don't think he's going to take advantage of a situation and forget why he's in that spot to begin with. And so at the NFL honors, like you see him there, his speech was very short and he thanks God, he thanks his family, he thanks the organization, he thanks the fans, and he's out. There's nothing about look at me, look at me. I think he understood he was going to win. He's hearing from all these people telling him how great he is. And yet it's not, he just not, when you see some of these other people on stage, when you saw some of the other people on stage, they just reacted a little bit different than Jayden Daniels did. And I think a lot of it goes back to what he wants to do is get back in the lab, get better at football, and go win football games. You listen to Tom Brady. There was a clip from Tom Brady talking about his process and how he, losing a Super Bowl and how he made sure when he got back there not to lose another one and what he did to prepare in his last one with Tampa. And it's just incredible. And I think the same can be said for a guy like Jayden Daniels. I can see him kind of having the same thought process for sure. There was a clip, I think it was on Bleacher Report maybe, where they asked him to identify various quarterbacks just based on their silhouettes, essentially. And you couldn't, it's just it's not even silhouette, it's just like a darkened figure and almost like a cartoonish figure. But he could do it. He identified each of the quarterbacks. And there was like 4 or 5, like Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Kyler Murray. I think there was 1 or 2 others but he got them all. He's the only quarterback who got them all. But it's like he said, I study these guys. This is what I watch all these players play. I study these guys. He could tell by he could say, oh, that's Aaron Rodgers' throwing motion. Oh, that's, Baker Mayfield's and, whatever. And so he just knew because he studies it and he studies it some more. And when you're like that's the stuff that pops out. That's why, you talk to people about like how important the VR stuff was to him. Well, it was important. And for him, it gives him a lot more reps, but it's so much more than that. And like it was again, Mike Denbrock, who was his OC at LSU, told me he's like he would have been good regardless in his final year with or without the VR. It definitely helped him. It gives him more reps, and that's a comforting thing for him. But the extra work he puts in, the film work, et cetera, is also why he had that kind of year. It's why he had this kind of year, and why, if you're looking for reasons why he wouldn't have that quote unquote sophomore slump, it's that. And I think he'll be good with it. And again, personality is good. That's why players like him. It's why players gravitate to him. But he does, and I think they also like that he doesn't. While he gets the spotlight, he doesn't seek it. It comes to him, and there's a difference. We know others who maybe might seek it. He does not, and I think that's why I think that's just it stood out to me when I'm watching it. But and it's nothing that's new. But I just felt like it was worth talking about again because I think it's a key element or key part of his character and why if you can be confident that he's going to get better year after year after year. So last one, I think it's great that they kept the staff together. I am keeping my eye on Marcus Mariota this offseason to see what happens to him. But it is important for Jayden's development that you have Kingsbury, Pritchard, David Blau, all back this year. Brian Johnson back. So that's a really now, unless something happens over the next whatever, but that's certainly how it looks right now. But that's very important for his development. And it's funny because for a little bit, it almost looked like the reverse was going to happen for Washington, that Kingsbury would stay, but some of the assistant coaches, some of the ones under him might end up going. The succession plan really involves keeping those guys while Kingsbury goes. So that's why it's so important. But there's also such a really good quarterback room and in just the coaching situation. I can't stress enough how important it is for Daniels to have a coach like Kingsbury. And he talked about him at the honor show, just how or that over the Super Bowl week, what he means to him. But he can match, Kingsbury can match how Daniels works. I think that's important. And and just not just how he works, but what's important to him. And you have two film nerds who are together. Both, one is super bright as a coach, one is super talented as a player and super bright himself. So you have those two guys. It's such a good mix that I'm really curious to see how this develops this year and where they can take the offense because of that. But then I talk about the quarterback room, and part of that is Mariota. Now we at the end of the year, Mariota made it clear that that he would certainly welcome coming back here. He liked being here a lot. And he really liked working alongside Jayden Daniels. And I told you before, but I heard early on how important people who know Jayden well, what he was telling them about Mariota and how much he liked having him around. And I think the more, it's funny because when he was signed, there was all this. This is why in free agency, myself, everybody included, you have to really get to understand the reasons why they signed somebody, not just react to, oh, Mariota wasn't this and that. What, they all would have done this. Well, they made the right choice, and it was a home run backup quarterback move for them because of what he was able to do for Jayden Daniels and just how much he helped him, and just whether it's just some advice, whether it's words of encouragement, knowing when to do it, etc. And then coming in and playing well when they needed him to. So that's also very key. But the things that to watch for Mariota really. He's got his family back. He's out west. He's got a newborn born on Christmas Day. How long does he want to be away from them? How far does he want to be away from them? The other thing that really mattered to him is getting a chance to start. So is there a place where he might be able to do that? You have Chip Kelly, who overlapped with him for 1 year at Oregon, who's now, of course, the OC with Las Vegas. Is that a possibility? Well, there's a natural connection there. So we'll see. And it would also put him closer to his family out west. And so that could be a place to watch. I don't know. I know like he's friends with Tua, good friends with Tua, but that's a long way from home and you're going to go back there and be a backup. So I don't know I don't know what Mariota thinks about that. I do know that he liked his situation in Washington. And if you leave, it would make sense if you're going to leave here or not resign here, that you go somewhere where it's good, it's better for you and your family, and maybe a chance to start. So that's just something with him. But if he did come back here, I think it'd be a big boost for Jayden. He really liked him. Not that you can't, you're not going to have the same guys every year. So you do what you do with the guys you have. And the thing with Daniels is, first of all, this group clearly brought in guys with the right mindset, right? And I think the other part of that is with Jayden, like this, his personality, I think it'll make it easy for anybody who comes to that room. And the more he learns about being in the NFL, the less he doesn't need that mentor. But it is always good to have a guy that you can, use as a sounding board for various things, also plays a position and not just a coach. But the more he matures in the NFL, the less he'll necessarily need what Mariota offered this year. But I still think it'd be good if they could bring him back. And then it's just like I said, it's a matter for Mariota. Certainly family means a lot to him. So how far do you want to be from them? And then if you're going to be away, or if you're going to go somewhere else, do you have a chance to start? So I think those are things to really watch for him. So anyway, folks, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed everything. Like I said, I'll be back on Tuesday with Ben Baby who covers the Bengals for ESPN, talking about T. Higgins. Should they not? We'll get into all that. And then on Thursday, it's Jordan Reed talking about the NFL draft, looking a couple months ahead. But now is the time to start monitoring some of these players and where they are on draft board or on the mock draft boards or the analyst draft boards, because we don't know where they are on the team's draft boards. Another thing to keep in mind, by the way, I meant to say this too on the number one part, is Adam Peters is very tight-lipped. So if you start, if it's going to be the speculation that comes out of here typically is going to come from outside this little circle, because he is ultra tight-lipped, and I think he likes it that way. So that's just something else to keep in mind as we move forward here into the offseason, now that we are in the true offseason, because there are no more games for a long time. So get ready for speculation season and just, this is always a tough time because you got many months to fill, and there's going to be a lot of talk about who fits where, what they might do, then why did they do it, why they do it, then who they draft, who they get, et cetera. And then how's it going to look, how's it going to fit? So much more time to get before ready for the season. So bear with us when you get tired of I'm tired of this. Well, just remember, not much else to talk about at this point. So anyways, appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you next time.